First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming to the City of Lawrence today to give me an opportunity to share some more good news about the City of Lawrence. Since taking office in January, one of the goals for me and certainly all of my staff was to put Lawrence back on the map in terms of being a place where business wants to set up shop and families want to settle down. We've set goals to tell our story and to share all the good things happening and good things about to happen in our city. This morning, I have the great pleasure of being able to announce that we have reached an agreement with Utility Body Worn to implement body camera technology on each of our patrol officers. Lawrence will now be among a very few Indiana cities to implement this technology for its officers and our citizens, with the goal of maintaining and strengthening the public trust in the Lawrence Police Department. I may be a bit biased, but I believe I have the honor of overseeing the best law enforcement organization in Indiana. You've heard enough from me, because I really want to turn this over to the men who are most responsible for making this happen. A long time ago, I learned that if you want to be successful, surround yourself with good people. And there is no finer example of that than the man most responsible for making this happen, my Chief of Police, David Hofmann.
Morning, everybody. Like the mayor, I am very excited to announce the implementation of this project with the Lawrence Police Department. I am so confident that this technology and this move is going to improve officer safety, ensure the transparency of what we do and why we do it, emphasize our own accountability, but also expect accountability from those who we interact with. Our theme in the City of Lawrence is all about community policing, and this is where we are partners with our citizens. And this technology, this tool in our toolbox, is just one more thing that's going to enhance community policing. But at the end of the day, what I hope to achieve with this technology is to build upon the foundation of trust among the citizens and the officers in the City of Lawrence that already exists. As I mentioned, improved officer safety and working conditions for the officers is very important to me. I'm interested in finding out whether or not complaints are actually valid or if they are false, complaints about officers and what they do. This technology will help tremendously with that. I'm hoping to reduce the likelihood of incidents where people on the street, suspects, subjects, citizens, I want to reduce the negative interactions. I want there to be less fighting with the police, and I think the presence of these cameras will help that, and hopefully reduce injuries to police officers and citizens alike. We will be gathering some very solid evidence where criminal matters are present for the judicial system. I'm excited about that. And I'm also, something else that's, I hope to use this data, this video, this audio, to improve our training scenarios and our training practices to make our officers even more sound in their duties and tasks that they interact in. And finally, basically, police-citizen encounters are going to improve with the benefit of this technology. As you all know, it has been a very violent year against law enforcement, really the past few years. But we have seen some horrific situations, and I think many of those situations are caused by a perceived lack of trust in law enforcement. This tool, this technology, will improve trust and will result in safer officers in our city. So finally, I want to wrap up by saying what to me is so noteworthy about bringing this to the City of Lawrence right now. We're not doing it in reaction to anything. There has not been a controversial use of force or one of these breaking news type incidents here involving a negative interaction with the police. We're doing it ahead of time, and hopefully by doing this, by bringing this technology to the City of Lawrence, we will reduce or eliminate those incidents in the future. So, on behalf of the men and women of the Lawrence Police Department, it's my pleasure to bring this technology forward, and we're really excited about it. And with that said, I'd like to introduce, as you already know, Mark Wood is our representative from Utility Body Worn, and he's a former police officer himself. He and I share all these goals I just mentioned about, or I just talked about. And Mark, if you want to come up and say a few words, and we'll have some questions and answers afterwards.
Mayor Collier, Chief Hofmann, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. On behalf of Utility and Associates, I just want to say a sincere thank you for your trust in us. A sincere thank you for allowing us to participate in serving the citizens of Lawrence. At Utility, it's not about running just a company. That's not what we're about. At Utility, we sincerely believe in serving the public and assisting law enforcement in serving the public, and that's why we're here today. We want to partner with you in the city of Lawrence, not only to serve the police officers in the city of Lawrence, but to serve the citizens that live here as well. We take that very, very seriously. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate it more than you know. As the chief mentioned, I am a former police officer. Not long ago, I was a police officer running a body camera program, and when I ran that program, I developed an acronym called TACT, T-A-C-T. And it's transparency, accountability, community relations, and trust. That's what I felt body cameras were all about when I was a police officer, and that is still my guiding principle today as I represent this great company called Utility and Associates. So I just want to ensure all of you here today, all those that are watching today, that Utility Associates is dedicated to working with you, to supporting you in this endeavor, and making this a successful endeavor for everybody in the city of Lawrence. So again, thank you. I appreciate it. And Chief Hofmann, did you have more you'd like to add?
I know a lot of people are curious about what this is all about. You've seen various versions of body cameras. They come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. They're sometimes mounted on sunglasses, on helmets, sometimes on shoulders, or even clipped on in the front of a uniform. What we're opting to go with is a much, in my opinion, smarter GPS, web-based cellular technology that I have personally never seen before. And the way it works, it's going to be mounted right inside a uniform vest, just like this. And if you'll indulge me, I'll try to put this on and see if I can do this. So you'll see that it's not militaristic, and it's not, it doesn't stand out. It looks like a normal uniform. And what we're talking about here is this device right here. It looks just like a smartphone, a camera, and essentially it is. The technology contained in this little device is going to save lives, save police officers' lives and citizens' lives. And it just clips in right there. You zip it up, and there's the camera. So, any questions about how this is going to work?
Yeah, kind of explain. I mean, is it on all the time? Do the officers turn them on themselves? Does it turn on automatically when it detects the officer pulls out his gun or gets out of his car?
Absolutely. There's a lot of ways that it can be activated and deactivated. So if an officer gets dispatched on, say, a domestic disturbance, as soon as he or she is put on the run, dispatched, the camera comes on, and it'll stay on. There are other triggers where we can program it so that when the car door opens, it automatically comes on. Or when the overhead light bar is activated, it automatically comes on. Or maybe when a shotgun release or a rifle release inside the car is activated, the camera comes on. We can set those parameters, and that's what the purpose of our pilot program is, to determine what we want in the city of Lawrence. So we can also set, it's got geocaching. So if I get sent to 123 Main Street for whatever kind of a run you can think of, we can set it so that within whatever distance we want, say a quarter mile of 123 Main Street, once this camera passes that border, it automatically comes on. Not just for this officer, but all the officers who come into that area. So that's one of the ways.
So the external factors of all the things you just laid out can turn them on automatically. Can the officers turn them off then? Do
They
officers
can.
have control of turning them
They
off?
do have that ability to do that. Yes.
When would they be able to turn them off, or when would it be a legitimate situation to turn them
Yeah, so obviously at the conclusion of a run where there's nothing else of any value, that's when an officer might determine to turn it off. And I know that probably the next question is going to be, well, what if an officer turns it off right before something happens? Well, those are situations where we're just going to have to look at why. Why was it turned off? And what were the, as long as we can explain and articulate why we do what we do, I think we're not going to have any problems at all with that.
I guess, Chief, just to clarify, so are there is your expectation that every interaction with a citizen is recorded, or are there certain situations to which the cameras don't use?
Sure. As you know, in law enforcement, even the most benign, kind of maybe a stolen bicycle report kind of a interaction, maybe we don't need to record that all the time. But sometimes when we're in times of peace, there could be shots fired somewhere, and that's where we expect that our officers will say, "Camera on, let's go." So to answer your question, we're not exactly sure. I don't think we need to have this activated for every single thing an officer does in his day. I think that's just asking too much. I don't think you would want that in your world either. Nobody would. But in situations where there is a call for service and there is a location and there's a situation going on, those are situations where the camera should probably be on. It's a documented request for service, and we're delivering that service. Same with traffic stops, same with Terry stops, suspicious people stops. Anything where an officer is investigating something, I would think that's where you're going to want the video rolling.
That leads to my next question. Where is the data stored, and how long is the video stored?
Okay, so that's a great question. We are, with this product, it's being automatically and instantly stored to a cloud. And the storage is unlimited. So if an officer gets out on a traffic stop, for example, and is asking for a license and registration, and then goes back to his police car to maybe do a computer check on the driver's license, for example, by the time they're sitting down and checking that license, everything that occurred up in front of that car with that driver is already permanently stored in digital high-definition fashion. As far as the retention period, I think is what you asked about, we're going to look at that. Right now, the state of Indiana just enacted a law that governs how long data should be stored, and right now it's 190 days. But we think we'll probably wind up storing it longer than that. But that's the state minimum.
Are you concerned about storage costs, as the city talked about?
Right, so yeah, the storage cost is a massive aspect of this whole project. With this particular vendor and this product, we have unlimited cloud storage at no additional cost. We're paying a flat fee, and it's unlimited storage and cost. If we want to store this data for 10 years, if that's what we decide we want to do, that can be done.
What's the flat fee?
The flat fee, are we good with that, or?
So, you mind if I jump in real quick?
You can, I mean.
Okay. So we partnered with the city of Lawrence to provide some special incentives with this, but generally the cost for this is $84 a month per officer on a service fee basis. And so for $84 a month per officer, you get the complete body-worn system that you see here with the real-time communication in the car that the chief talked about, so that you have the immediate offload via either cellular connectivity or Wi-Fi connectivity to the cloud in real time, and unlimited storage. As long as you're following whatever your retention policy is here in the city of Lawrence or the state of Indiana, you can have unlimited cloud storage for that $84 a month.
So how many officers are you equipped with?
So today we're announcing that we are announcing this project. So far as we sit here today, no officers have been equipped. But starting next week, we're going to have 2 officers do a pilot program for a couple weeks, and we're going to see how they like it, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And then we expect that within 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to unfold this to every uniformed officer in the city of Lawrence who is driving a marked car and taking runs. So essentially, all the patrol officers in the operations division who wear a uniform will be equipped with this technology.
How many?
So that's 44 officers now. We have 62 total, but 44 in operations. So that'll be the number that we're looking at. And you talk about cost, and we talk numbers, and again, going along the transparency and accountability, the financial aspect of this is critical. But we kind of figured it out, and for less than what an officer is going to spend for a fast food lunch during his or her shift, he's equipped with this technology, to put it in perspective.
Right, I guess I still understand, was there is this a done deal, or are you talking about a pilot program?
It's a done deal. We have entered into this agreement with with utility, and we're starting next week.
Right.
The pilot is for the purpose of them, for the Lawrence Police Department to start integrating the technology into their system and their philosophy, to kind of slowly roll this out so that it's not just done all at one time, to give officers time to adjust. That also gives us time as a utility to have feedback about how it's working with them individually, because every officer and every police department's a little bit different. That gives us time to adjust what we're going to do with the full rollout later on.
So total, I mean, what are you looking at in terms of setup costs and everything like that? I mean, how much is the city of Lawrence spending on this program for the rest of the year?
So for the rest of this year, or we're entering into a long-term contract that's going to cost roughly $60,000 a year.
And is that all taxpayer money? Do you guys get a grant for that?
We haven't received any grants yet. We are going to pursue some grant opportunities, some federal grant opportunities to help.
If I can add to that
Yes.
too, that price that he's talking about includes not only the body-worn system, but also the in-car video system that we're providing too. So there's a lot more to it than just the body-worn camera piece of it.
That's a really exciting point about this, is that each police car, so for every one of these that you see, there will be inside the officer's car a forward-facing high-definition video system and a rear-facing camera as well. So that when the officer finishes up whatever run he's on, he can get on his laptop, it's web-based, so he can go to a website and he can view 3 different views of that. So there will be the body-worn, the front-facing, the rear-facing video of whatever just happened. So for example, if an officer makes an arrest and at the time it comes to write the report, he can review the video and make sure that what really happened, that the words that were said, the actions that happened are documented perfectly in the report. Sometimes human brains, human error comes in and they forget, or maybe something happened that they perceived one way, but in reality happened another way. I mean, that's just human nature. This will really help us improve our accuracy and accountability. And another part of this too is when that incident, if it were to go to court, right before the officer goes to testify, he or she can review that video again and make sure everything's fresh in their mind. So once again, improving the accuracy and transparency and accountability for the officers.
So, how long is the contract for?
It's a 5-year contract.
5-year contract. So how are you getting the $60,000 a year? Is it
We're,
a tax or where's that coming from?
sure.
That's probably a question for me. We have already budgeted that into the police budget, public safety budget for the remainder of this year. It's already a part of the 2017 budget too. So even though we certainly will go out and seek grants, we're all looking for money any way we can. We already have the money budgeted for 2017 and beyond throughout the 5-year contract.
Right, so, I mean, did you take the money from somewhere else or?
Public safety. Yeah, public safety tech.
If your cameras were to malfunction or deactivated, would you guys be notified or would the officer be notified? Also, are there any protocols for that happening as well?
So in the event of some sort of technological failure, as part of the service agreement that we already pay for, utility will repair or replace the unit as quickly as possible within a day or two. So
But what if like the officer's on a run and that happens? So what happens?
if an officer is on a run and the camera malfunctions,
Yes.
I guess we'll
answer-
deal with that.
I can answer that. So I think your question is, will the officer understand and know that it's malfunction? And the answer is yes. So anytime the unit that's placed in the uniform powers down for any reason, whether it's battery life issue or there's a malfunction, there will be a vibration that occurs in that vest so the officer knows something has happened. And that's the cue to pull it out, look at it, and see what has happened. So if that were to happen, the officer will know it immediately. So I will tell you that in our rollout of these devices all over the country, we have hundreds of these in departments all over the country. I haven't heard of that happening at this point. It's something that just doesn't seem to happen to us very often at all, because I've never heard of it. So, but if that were to happen, that's exactly what the response would be. If it powers down for any reason, the officer will know.
How long is the battery life?
The battery life is good for about 5.5 hours of continuous recording. Bear in mind that that's not what is going to be happening in the field. Usually recording is what we call incident-based. So when the officer is on routine patrol, the camera won't be on. It'll be on when they're dispatched to a run, or they get out of a car on a run, or one of the things that the chief didn't mention is if the officer gets out of the car and starts chasing or has to run for some reason, there's an emergency and the officer has to run, it will detect that and automatically turn the camera on so the officer doesn't have to remember to do that.
How does it detect it?
Because this is a smartphone, smartphones have an accelerometer in it, it has a gyroscope in it. We take advantage of all of that capability. It's cellular, it's Wi-Fi. We take advantage of all the technology that's built into a smartphone to understand position. So just how you have your own smartphone and you turn it sideways and the screen flips for you, that same technology allows us to understand the position of this phone, our camera. So if an officer goes down into a prone position, an officer down alert actually is sent to communications, is sent to all the officers around that person, and turns the camera on because it understands that it's in a prone position. If I start running, it detects that motion, and it'll automatically turn the camera on, send a notice to communications that the officer is either in a foot pursuit or a struggle.
What's the biggest department that you guys are currently working with?
The largest department right now probably is DeKalb County Police Department in Georgia, where we're deploying 600 of these right now. We are working with Bear County, Texas, which is the county that surrounds San Antonio, and I believe it's about the same number we're deploying there. Colorado Springs, Colorado is another place we have a deployment underway right now, and that's probably in the 400 range. So we have some very large departments.
What about accessibility to the public? This video, will that change? Now that you guys have this video taken?
In terms of?
In terms of accessing that.
Yeah, so the Indiana law that was just passed and enacted and set forth on July 1st sets the parameters for that. When can somebody view the video? Under what circumstances? Who's qualified and eligible? In other words, if I go to your house on a domestic, your neighbor can't request to see, that video. But there are a list of, if you'll go to House Enrolled Act 1019, lists all the qualified people to view and how that must be done.
If I could add to that also, part of the product that we're delivering to utility is also what we call the back-end piece of it, which includes automatic or smart redaction technology. So if somebody requests a video and they have a legitimate reason to have the video, we have the ability to protect people's privacy through video redaction. In other words, we have the ability to interactively or automatically go through video and redact or blur out someone's face if we need to, blur out everybody's faces if we need to. We can blur out license plates, any object that may be of a sensitive nature. We have the ability to do that so we can redact video for public use and still be able to protect the privacy of people in the community.
Speaking of privacy, do you guys have policies in place, or what guidelines do you have to follow in terms of letting subjects you're interacting with know that they're being recorded?
Right, so our pilot policy is still under development. And what we're looking at on how we're going to deploy this technology in the city of Lawrence, we're going to look at nationwide best practices, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, for example, the National FOP, the Police Executive Research Forum. These are all nationwide bodies governed by experts, and their policy, they have model policies for how to unroll this kind of technology. We're also looking at state of Indiana, obviously what the state law says. We'll have strict adherence to that. We're going to be looking at other communities. And so we haven't developed exactly how it's going to look in its final form months from now because we haven't enrolled it. We don't know how it's going to fit for the police officers and the citizens of the city of Lawrence. But I can tell you, to your question, I'm going to encourage officers to let people know when feasible that the camera's rolling. On any kind of given, whatever you can think of, a disturbance, a call for service, a traffic stop. I want everybody to know camera's rolling, high definition, video, audio, what you say is going to be captured, what I say is going to be captured, and we're all going to be above board here. So my experience in my previous role with IMPD, I saw firsthand a reduction in the people who were verbally and physically resistant to officers. It's slowed down. We had people calling in to make a complaint on an officer, for example, who just wrote him a ticket. And when the supervisor informed that person that officer had a body-worn camera, I can think of several examples where they said, well, never mind, I don't want to worry about that. So false complaint reduction. So again, yes, sir.
So just to clarify, because you mentioned about the deterrent, factor, but when I look at you, it's not apparent to me that you're wearing a body camera.
Correct.
So how do you go about making the other person aware that this is all being recorded?
Well, and that'll be in our policy, and I'm not going to make our officers stick to a script, of course, but I do want our officers to verbally inform people, and maybe even physically by pointing, saying, this device is on, and everything you say and everything I say is being recorded. May I see your license and registration, please? That kind of a thing. As long, I think as long as everybody knows, that's what's important. And I think just by taking one look, you can tell this is clearly, not a button. It's a video, right? It's a camera. So what I like about this, the trade-off there is we could easily go with a product that was mounted on the shoulder or mounted on some sunglasses, although that's problematic for night shift officers. But we could go with something that is exterior, it's obvious, somebody takes one look and there's a camera in place. The trade-off to that is when an officer starts running, struggling, that camera comes off. The wires come off. This is right inside there. And although you can't really tell now because I don't have it fully fastened, once it's fully fastened, it's on here nice and snug. So when an officer moves, the camera moves 150-degree view of what the officer sees. So it's really some amazing technology, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
And how many different vendors did you look at, and what were the price ranges annually?
Yeah, we saw all different kinds. In my previous role and in my current role, I looked at vendors all across the country, and for the dollar for dollar, without giving you exact prices, because this product includes things like unlimited data storage on a cloud for as long as we want. That's extremely expensive with most other vendors. The automatic redaction, most other vendors don't even offer that, and there are companies out there that you could subcontract with that do redaction, and that's at an additional cost, and that's all included in the money that Mark just talked about. So again, for it's apples and oranges, but for what we're paying for and what we're getting, it's the best value I've ever seen.
Do you know specifically what day next week the 2 officers are going to start?
Yeah, we're going to start installations on Wednesday and Thursday for our first 2 officers. And that's their vehicles. The uniforms have already been fitted and ordered. The patches, because this is just a black uniform, right? So there will be a badge, maybe sewn on. We're not sure yet how that'll work. I think initially it'll be embroidered, but there will be a name tag. Obviously, officers need to have their name visible.
The next Wednesday or Thursday, these cameras will be active.
Yes, and then on August 23rd, we're actually hosting, for lack of a better word, a symposium for other area chiefs of police to take a look at this technology. It's going to be held right across the street at 6002 North Post Road at the Garrison. And we'll have, obviously, utility body worn will be there. Our officers will be there to demonstrate and to talk about their experiences in just in about a week of experiencing the camera. But we'll have their vehicles present that you can take a look at, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some more questions at that time, because we will have, even though it's just a short period, we'll have a period of time that officers were actually out in the field. And I can't wait for you to talk to them about what they experience.
And then, I know you said 2 or 3 weeks until full rollout. Do you have a specific day in mind that you hope to have all 44 officers equipped?
We really don't, because we have technicians coming to the city of Lawrence from Atlanta. We're using our municipal garage to get officers in and out. I think they expect about 3 to 4 hours per vehicle and per officer. There's a training component to that as well. Officers need to know some of the things we talked about here today. A lot of our officers aren't even aware of some of this stuff yet. So they need to know, how do I use this and what the parameters are. So I can't just say that on October 1st we'll be all ready to go at 6 a.m. But I can tell you this fall, in October, in September and October, we hope to slowly be unrolling this. I'd love to have you all back in 6 months and say, well, how's it going? And report that it's going well.
Okay, and with you taking on the system, where does Lawrence stand in Indiana when it comes to body cams? And then in other states that pursue this as well, there's always great expense involved with embracing body cams and then all of the management that goes with it. But what makes you feel confident about going forward with this program and knowing that the expense will be contained to $60,000 a year?
Well, we know that the expense will be contained to $60,000 a year. That's in the service agreement. So we're locked in there. As far as where we stand with other agencies, I mean, The city of Lawrence is the 18th largest city in the state of Indiana. A lot of people don't know that. I think that gets lost because we're encompassed by the city of Indianapolis, which obviously is the largest city, and 1,600 plus officers with the city of Indianapolis. It's a much bigger deal to deploy this kind of technology with those kinds of numbers. But so where we stand, honestly, I'm not really sure. I can only think off the top of my head of a couple other agencies in Indiana that have deployed body cams, and I know of none that have deployed this kind of intelligent, smart body cam program. So I think we're definitely the leader. I can tell you that. We're the leader in this kind of technology. The whole body-worn camera thing ever since Ferguson and even before then, it's been talked about, and a lot of states don't have rules by which we play this game. So I mentioned to you before we got started, everybody wants to play the game, but the rules haven't been set. Well, last month in the state of Indiana, the rules have been set, and we're ready to play.
Hey, Chief, I know you alluded to it at the start, but given the climate across the country, why personally for you was it important that you implement a system that not only holds your own officers accountable, but also clears them in certain incidents? Why was that important to you?
Well, of course, I can tell you firsthand the vast majority, 99% of our interactions in the United States and in Lawrence, it's no different here, involve righteous officers doing great work under tremendously stressful situations, and this technology is simply going to document the great work that they're doing.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys?
Thanks.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate it.